Okay, this lesson has to do with fallacies that appeal to our emotions. Okay? Here's what we mean by that. Sometimes the reasons given for believing something is true is not some logical fact or other. It's our emotions. Unfortunately, however, our emotions, the various emotions that we have, are irrelevant to whether some fact is true. We don't make things true or false because we want them to be true or false, or we fear that they're not true or false. Our emotions about a claim do not make it true or false. So they represent a fallacy of appeal to emotion. Okay? All right, so let's talk about appeals to emotion. There are different kinds. The first is the argument from outrage. Argument from outrage is just when I use anger as a way to get you to believe or to do something. Okay, I try to invoke your anger as a reason to do or to believe something. Now that you're angry about something doesn't mean that you should believe or do anything, really. But we call that an argument from outrage. The next is a scare tactic. You know, a scare tactic is when I use fear as a reason to do or to believe something. It's different than outrage, right? Outrage is anger. A scare tactic is fear, right? If you don't do this, then this bad consequence will happen. Well, then what I'm saying is that you should believe this, but my reason why is your fear that something else bad will happen. That's called a scare tactic. Peer pressure fallacy is kind of like a scare tactic. It's when we invoke, it will be obvious to you, peer pressure as a reason to do or to believe something. The next one is an appeal to pity. Appeal to pity is when I get you to feel sorry for somebody or something and get you to believe something is true based on your sorrow or your pity. There are other basic appeals to emotion. Apple polishing, which for apple polishing you might just institute in your own mind the word pride. Apples in fairy tales and things are very often symbols of pride. Snow White, the reason why she's given an apple by the Wicked Witch, typically we look in an apple, in the sheen of an apple, to see our own image, or at least we did before we had mirrors. You could generally see your image in the sheen of an apple. That is why the apple polishing got its name, but how the apple polishing fallacy got its name, but really what we're doing there is we're appealing to pride. Guilt tripping. Oh, good Lord, guilt tripping. Parents, we use this one big time, and if you don't, you will. The next one is envy. Sometimes people invoke envy or jealousy, well, envy and jealousy are two different things, but my envy of another person's things, my neighbor got a new car and I envy their car, and that will be distinct from jealousy, but we'll cover that in just a minute. Let's talk about the argument from outrage first. This appeal to emotion fallacy occurs when a speaker or writer supports a contention by trying to make us angry rather than producing a real argument. So I'm just going to make you pissed off, and then I'm going to try to use your anger to get you to believe or to do something. Argument from outrage. Okay. Here's an example. Do you think Apple doesn't know it hires 12-year-old children to make its electronics? Why? You think it isn't aware it pays them slave wages and has them work in buildings without heat or air conditioning? It knows. Apple products can't be any good. Now, what am I trying to do? I'm giving you these facts as a means to upset you or to piss you off, right? And having done that, I want you to draw the conclusion that Apple products are no good. Apple products are, in fact, pretty darn good. Better than PC products, I'll have you know. Or at least that's my preference. I'll leave that alone. But why do I want you to believe that Apple products can't be any good here in this quote? Well, because what I'm trying to do is invoke a bunch of statistics here and rhetorical questions here in an effort to get you upset, to get you fired up. so that you'll accept that their products can't be any good. Now, you might think logically this doesn't make any sense, and that's the point. Logically, it doesn't. But the truth is that people buy into this kind of reasoning all the time. Again, as I record these lessons, we're in an election year, and the argument from outrage is just rampant right now, okay? I'm going to get you all upset about this and this and this, and there's this scandal and this scandal and this scandal. So, boom, you should, Hillary Clinton has this and this and this and this and this scandal, so you should vote for Trump. Or Trump has this and this and this and this scandal, and he's done this and he said this, and I'm saying these things get you pissed off, so you should vote for Hillary. Notice that the arguments for voting for Trump or voting for Hillary in either case are just because I'm trying to use your emotions to get you to do it. In particular here, your anger or your outrage. Okay, the second one is a scare tactic. Scare tactic, not anger, not outrage. This one is fear. So this occurs when a speaker or writer tries to scare us into accepting an irrelevant conclusion. This includes direct threats, sometimes called argument from force. We're not going to worry about the difference between a scare tactic and an argument from force. Just understand that there are different ways that I can scare you. I can scare you directly by directly threatening you. Believe in this or I'll kill you. Or I can do it in more subtle ways. You should do this or you might lose your job. Now, if I said that to you and I was your employer, notice that I'm invoking your fear of losing your job as a reason for you to do something. If I came to you and I said, you should vote for this person for president because if you don't, I'm not going to give you a very good grade. Scare tactic. I'm trying to use your fear of getting a bad grade as a reason to do something. Vote for a particular candidate. Here's another example of one. If, let's say, we worked at Michelin and I said, hey, buy Michelin tires. Don't risk your children's safety by buying inferior brands. Now, what I want you to do is to buy Michelin tires. Now, why? Well, I'm playing on your fear that something will happen to your children if you don't. I'm using a scare tactic. I'm attempting to scare you, and I'm not directly threatening you, right? This isn't a direct threat. This is an indirect threat. There is a threat to your children's safety when you don't buy Michelin tires. Okay. All right. Very good. Let's talk about the threat. Sometimes the scare tactic takes the form of a threat. Let's look at an example of that. Buy Michelin tires, I'll see to it you lose your job. Well, now I'm directly threatening you, aren't I? So that scare tactic is the direct threat form. Okay. There is another scare tactic that we refer to. It's called peer pressure. Peer pressure is a fear of not belonging to a group or being excluded from a group. That's peer pressure, right? So peer pressure is by definition negative. It's a fear-based reason for doing or believing something. But the reasoning goes, rather than a threat, it's a fear of exclusion from a group. So I'd say, if you don't believe this, then you're not one of us, kind of thing. Okay? So let's look at our example. Of course we're winning the war. If you don't like that, move to Baghdad, you weirdo. All right, now if I said that to you, I clearly want you to believe that we are winning the war in Iraq. Now, why? Well, the reason I give you is that if you don't believe it, you're a weirdo and you should move to Baghdad. Well, then you're not one of us, right? What I'm intimating here, what I'm implying here is that you're not one of us if you don't think we're winning, and then get out of here. Don't be part of us. So if you want to be part of us, you must come to believe that we are winning the war in Iraq. Okay? All right, that's peer pressure. All right. Next one, scare tactic versus fear mongering. Let's talk about the difference there. Sometimes the scare is used not to get us to accept a specific conclusion, but to agitate us agitate or frighten us as a demagogue might. Now, this is more intimidation than a scare tactic. I'm not trying to get you to do or to believe something. I just want to intimidate you, right? A demagogue, acting demagogically, I guess is the word. Here's an example of fear mongering. I have here in my hand a list of 205 people that were known to the Secretary of State as being members of the Communist Party and who nevertheless are still working and shaping the policy of the State Department. Now notice, they haven't asserted there's anything for you to believe. They're just trying to make you afraid if you're one of the people on this list. Their intention here, and the context in which they're uttering it, is just to make you afraid. Not for any particular reason. They haven't given a conclusion for you to believe or something for you to do. They're just fear-mongering. They just want you to be afraid. Okay? That was Joseph McCarthy, in case some of you know who that is. All right, let's talk about the appeal to pity. Oh, pity. An appeal to emotion fallacy that occurs when a speaker or writer supports, begin quote unquote, a contention by playing on our sympathy rather than producing a real argument. Let me give you an example of this. I'll actually have more than one example of this. Jane is the best qualified candidate. Okay, why should I believe that? Because she's out of work and she really needs a job. Well, that's not a qualification for a job. That you need a job is not a qualification to have a job, right? It doesn't mean you're qualified. There are lots of people who need a job. We don't think that they're qualified to be a surgeon just because they need a job, okay? So pity here, why are we bringing this stuff up then? Well, we want you to feel sorry for them. And we want your feeling sorry for them to motivate you to give them the job. The appeal to pity is something, I'll be frank with you, that a lot of my students do when they email me. They tend to email me with when they miss an assignment with some sort of story about how things have gone terribly wrong and how frustrated. Look, I do it too. When I have to call in sick to work or there's something going on, I want to make sure that the person who knows that I'm not going to be there knows that they should feel sorry for me for not being there. Okay? We all use it all the time. Your kids, oh my God, they'll use appeal to pity all the time. They will, I want this because all my friends have one and I don't have one too, and I sometimes don't get to play with my friends at recess because they all have Pokemon cards and I don't have Pokemon. Oh my God, you're trying to make me feel sorry for you. Stop. That's not why I'm going to buy you Pokemon cards, okay? Not that this has happened recently to me, but it has. All right. Next one is apple polishing. Apple polishing, remember this is the one with pride, right? Think of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Dwarves? No, dwarves. Apple polishing is the appeal to pride. Let's look at the definition. This occurs when a speaker or writer supports a contention by trying to flatter us rather than producing a real argument. We try to appeal to someone's pride. We flatter them. Well, you know, you're a very smart person, so you are, of course, voting for Hillary. Or you want to make America great again. So, of course, and because you're such a great American, you want to vote for Donald Trump. All of these are what we call apple polishing. I'm attempting to get you to do or to believe something by invoking a sense of pride in you that says that, you know, I'm going to flatter you, make you feel hunky-dory, and say, so of course you're going to do this. Well, then how could you not, right? You're such a hunky-dory person. Let's go with an example. Oh, gosh, I keep double-tapping the PowerPoint thing here. Surely someone as intelligent as you can see that the market system is always better than government regulation. Now, what do they want you to believe? That the market system is better than government regulation. Why? Well, because you're so intelligent. Isn't this just obvious to you? That's tripping somebody up on their own pride. That's apple polishing. Clear as a bell there. They're flattering you, making you feel pride as a reason to do or to believe something. All right, the next one is guilt tripping. You gotta like guilt tripping. Guilt tripping is supporting a contention by trying to make us feel guilty rather than producing a real argument. Okay? I will be frank with you. My wife has used this one on me. She wanted to get the kids something for back to school that I didn't feel as though the kids needed. I don't recall the specific item, but my guess is that it was a new backpack, and they had their backpack from last year, so why the hell would they need a new one? But, you know, it caused a little tension between my wife and I. And my wife turned to me at one point and said the following: well, I love our children, and if you don't, then... Oh, right. She's trying to make me feel like I don't love my kids because I'm not getting them that backpack, that new backpack that they think they need, right? Okay. Why am I supposed to get the backpack then? Well, what we're doing is we're trying to make me feel guilty for not getting it, and then that becomes my reason for getting it. It's to avoid the guilt. That's what we call guilt tripping. Now, here's the example of that. How could you not invite Jennifer to your wedding? You really must. Now, I should invite Jennifer to my wedding. Why? Well, they're trying to make you feel guilty here, right? How could you do that? Like, I'm a bad guy for not inviting Jennifer? Jennifer's my ex-girlfriend. Why would she go to my wedding? That's ridiculous. I have good reason for not inviting her. But of course, this person, whoever's making this argument to me, is trying to guilt trip me. They're trying to make me feel bad for not inviting her. Notice the only reason I have for inviting her is so that I don't feel bad. I want to avoid guilt. That's the only reason given here. It's not even given, it's just assumed. But that's the only reason present here, I should say. Okay? So that's guilt tripping. Appeal to envy. Appeal to envy is a fallacy that occurs when a speaker or writer supports a contention by trying to make us envious rather than producing a real result. Here's the example. Colin has had every advantage. He was born into a wealthy family, he's very good looking, and he always has been at the top of his class. In short, he has everything you don't have. If I were you, I'd take him off the short list for the job. Now notice, they want you to not give him the job. So there's something they want you to do. That is to not give him the job, to pass him over for the job. Sometimes is what they want you to believe. Now, why should I do or believe that? Well, notice that they're trying to make me jealous of him. Well, not jealous, envious of him. Okay? Look at all these things he's got. Doesn't that invoke envy? Now, that's going to be different than the appeal to jealousy, though very subtly different than the appeal to jealousy, because the appeal to jealousy tries to make us jealous rather than producing a real argument. So here's the example here. Listen, I know how much you're in love with Sarah, and that's why I'm telling you that Jack has been hitting on her lately. You ought to know that when you're deciding on who should be selected for the internship, Jack applied for it. What's going on here is I'm not trying to make you envious. It's not like there's a bunch of things that you should want for yourself. I'm trying to make you jealous in the sense that you want to get back at Jack. Jealousy and envy are a little bit different in that envy doesn't imply retaliation, but jealousy does. Jealousy implies some sort of comeback, some sort of reply or retort. And here, the jealousy is kind of like an envy with a retort, okay? Envy with a reply. Though, again, not really envy. I'm jealous of Jack because Sarah's he's hitting on Sarah, and I'm afraid Sarah might give Jack her affections. And so, because I have this rival, they're going to advocate that I go back after them and not give them the job as a form of retaliation. Then it's jealousy. That's not me. When my neighbor gets a new car and I'm envious of it, I don't go out and key the car because I'm envious. I might if I were jealous, but I wouldn't if I were envious. Envy just says, I want one too. Jealousy says, I want this back, or something along those lines, okay? So there is a difference between the two. All right, and that should be it for that lesson.